Oh! Welcome to this spectacular episode of Demystifying Design. That's right, in this horrifying episode, we're going to cover one of the most spooky ideas in all of human history, and that is sleeping in through your alarm and being late to work. It's a brutal, terrifying experience, the stuff of nightmares, some would say. But in order to combat this, we're going to actually redesign my personal alarm clock, which I use on my phone, called Sleep as Android. And we're going to make it much more usable, such that I don't accidentally set the wrong alarm or miss my alarm for one reason or another. As you can see here, it's really not that bad. Like if you look at it and you try to use this, you're going to know what to click on. But when you really get into the nitty-gritty on the settings, deeper and deeper into the individual alarms, you realize that it's actually really confusing, and there's lots of anti-patterns that they're using throughout the whole UI. So we're just going to take this and completely scrap it and completely design a brand new alarm app and see what we come up with. So as always, we've got our sexy little style guide here today. We're scrapping their existing design system because they didn't really have one. So we're just going to use a nice collection of blues, some blacks and grays as always, and we're using a very robotic looking font called Facet. And I think they're using Roboto in their existing UI. I wanted to kind of stick to the spirit of that, but use a much more performant font, something that doesn't look super generic like Roboto does. So here we've got our user stories as always. Really, what do I want to do? I want to set an alarm to wake me up in the morning, right? That's all there is to it. And then I want to view all my alarms at once when I know that one is set. And then, of course, go for a quick nap to catch some Z's if I want to just quickly go to sleep and then get woken up at a time that's reasonable for me at the appropriate time after a sleep cycle. So I'm going to go ahead and get started here. Got my reference images, and we're just going to build this completely from scratch. So unfortunately, I have to de-rhino myself in order to actually see what I'm doing. But yeah, excited to get this one going. I'll touch base with you guys in about 2 hours. I'm going to speed you through the navigation because there's nothing really fancy to it, and we end up changing it towards the end anyway. The first treatment I'm applying here is making sure that the user can see two pieces of information very clearly from this perspective. That's the hour that they're waking up at, meaning when the alarm is set, and whether or not that alarm is on or off. In the existing UI, they kind of did okay where the hour is bigger than the rest, and the on or off toggler is slightly blue, but here I'm making the hour very bold and making the text explicit on the toggler so there's no ambiguity as to whether or not this alarm is on or off. Pretty consistently awesome heuristic that I follow is whenever you have a list of items that are either enabled or disabled, if they're disabled, just make them 40% opacity. And yes, it's harder to see and it often doesn't pass accessibility tests, but as long as the control to re-enable it past accessibility contrast tests, you're fine. And the opacity just heavily implies that it's disabled. So it's kind of just a super obvious way to handle that user story. I know many of you are probably going to find this quite obvious, but for those of you that don't know yet, whenever you have an element or kind of an item that you're editing, if there are main controls or some way that you can manipulate with that whole object, you generally want to put them in the upper right part of the experience. So if you're creating a new object, it goes in the upper right, or if you're doing some kind of deletion or toggling on and off, it goes in the upper right. That's generally where people expect those kinds of controls to be, so if you're ever stuck in a situation where you don't know where they need to go, just put them there. Whenever you have the option to give the user some mechanism to select something with only buttons as opposed to using a drop-down, you should generally opt for using buttons. It's just so much easier for the user to just tap on one single option as opposed to opening a drop-down, searching through the drop-down, selecting the correct option, and then going back. So here I'm just having the user pick which days of the week they want this alarm to run on, instead of having them like select from an elaborate list of potential days. Obviously, when selecting a ringtone to wake you up in the morning, it's very difficult to know whether or not you want to hear that one unless you can preview it. So giving the user a mechanism to just listen to that sound as they're selecting here made a lot of sense. One of the main usability flaws of Sleep as Android, at least from my experience, is that they try to do way too much at once. And I'm a big proponent of kind of just simplifying experiences across the board. I think users prefer that too. You get more engagement with all of your options if you just simplify how they're displayed. So here I'm giving them the option to advertise one of their more nuanced features at the very top of a commonly trafficked screen, as opposed to just putting all of the ads in the main primary dashboard and expecting users to navigate that on their own. And here's where I'm realizing that the navigation I implemented earlier is just really archaic. The pattern of having the menu opening from the top left is really dated, and for most users that are right-handed, lifting your thumb all the way to the top left of the screen just isn't really feasible anymore. So I'm here moving the navigation down to the bottom of the screen and allowing the user to navigate it very easily, and then bumping the Add Alarm button up to the top right, where, as we referenced earlier, users kind of expect those controls to be anyway. And finally, just wanted to give users a quick way to take a nap that would last for like one standard human sleep cycle for about 45 minutes or so. That's kind of the main value out of this app, is that it will monitor you while you sleep and then wake you up when you start to move around. Presumably that means that you're in the very light sleep cycle. So just having the ability to open the app and then immediately take a nap, to me felt like a big win, and then subsequently felt appropriate to put it in this little floating button here. Bam, ba, ba, bam. Beautiful, absolutely beautiful. I feel like at this point we kind of have, or I'm looking at here, the kind of alarm app that I would want to use. Selfishly, right? This is kind of just the really simple, just straight to the point, very pragmatic design. But we've baked a lot into this UI, right? We can add new alarms, we can switch between different perspectives, we can toggle individual details on one alarm or create a new one from scratch if we need to. Toggle them off and on, and take a quick nap if we want to just, immediately go to sleep and be woken up at an appropriate time, given when I fell asleep, plus the average human sleep cycle. So I think this is a fun little UI, cool experience, and at least now I'm a little less scared that I'm going to be missing my alarm in the morning. Here we're going to take a quick look at the before and after, so you can see that previously we were working with lots of anti-patterns. Everything was quite difficult to maneuver, lots of traditional dated design, and now we're looking at something brand spanking new that kind of does everything we need it to do in a very clean and modern way. The kind of alarm clock that would save people from sleeping past their alarm. So hope you enjoyed this. Hope that you had a lovely, safe Halloween this weekend and that this wasn't too scary for you. All things considered, I'm really happy with this resulting UI. But let me know if you have any thoughts on this UI, or even better, if you have any interfaces that you'd like me to tackle on the show here. I'll see you guys next week. Take care.